Well, hello there. I'm just on my way to spend the winter down in Vancouver Island. I live in Kamloops, BC, and now with my job and remote working, I decided to sell my house and buy an RV and move down to the island. So I'm going to just show you a little bit here of the project that we worked on. My best friend Wayne and I spent probably a good 2 weeks on this build. It's a 2000 watt solar system we put in, and yeah, I'll just kind of show you what we did. First of all, here's the trailer, just so you kind of have an idea what we're working on. And yeah, so that's a 2008 Jayco Designer. It's a 34 RLQS. It's about 15,800 pounds, and yeah, I have a 2008 F350 with a 6-liter diesel. That's her right there. Let's take a look here and see what we got on the roof. Hold on one second. Okay, so here we go. This is what I've got going on here. We've got 5 500 watt panels, and we just installed these tracks here on each side, all the way from the front to the back. And yeah, just fastened the panels to the tracks, sealed her all up nicely. And there was already a cable right at the front by the nose cap there. So this trailer was solar prepped, so kind of made it fairly easy to put 2000 watts up here. But yeah, I'll go climb downstairs or climb back down and we'll take a look inside.
Just want to clarify that the way we attached those rails to the roof was Steve had to email the manufacturer, who in this case is Jayco, and they sent the schematic of the roof right down to the 1/16 of an inch, because his roof is tubular aluminum, bent aluminum. You can see by the cross section there what it looks like. Apologize for having this on an angle, but that's just the way it came. You just print it off and turn it. Anyhow, yeah, we had to measure and get these distances exactly correct. 40 1/4, etc. down to the 1/16 of an inch, and we managed to hit every single aluminum tube frame member. And then we legged to that using leg bolts with sealant and sealing washers on them. Okay, just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, so here we have is two 5.2 volt or 48, I guess if you will, Vothium batteries, are made by Vothium out of Quebec. So they're Canadian brand batteries, and yeah, these things are basically the creme de la creme. They're really nice batteries. So what we did, we got the batteries installed here, nice and tight and secure, bolted right down through the plywood and also to the frame underneath, and made up all of our own cables. Did some nice work on our cable management. And also what we've done here is that there was a generator plug here before, because this bay here is kind of like made up for a own-in generator if you wanted that option when you bought this fifth wheel from new. But so there was some wiring here already set for a generator, but of course that wasn't gonna work exactly for us. We had to kind of do some changes with it, and we ran a wire from the back of this box down inside the wall here, and then I put a 30 amp plug in the front here if I want to run a generator or go to a 30 amp service, because this is a 50 amp trailer. But that will make it nice and convenient, and yeah, in case I do need to use shore or 30 amp shore or a generator. But as far as the rest of the goodies in here, we've got a LuxPower 6,000 watt inverter solar charger, and yeah, this is it's a hybrid model, and they're usually or mostly bought for off-grid cabins Another brand or a sister brand to this is an EG4 6000 XP. This is just which is made by LuxPower. This is LuxPower 6000 XP, and yeah, it seems to function quite well. This setup here, we've got this is our generator line. So this one's coming from the front, and it feeds into this box, and then it goes out over to our generator line input on the inverter. Then out of the inverter, this is our load. We got a transfer switch right here because this is a 50 amp inverter. It's got two legs, an L1 and L2 leg, so basically 240 volt. And when you go to plug your 50 amp shore power to a 30 amp service and use the dog bone that most people do, this doesn't recognize it because it only wants to see 240.
Okay, hey YouTube, it's Wayne here, back again with a bit of an explanation of our Steve and I's installation in his 32-foot Designer RV. His RV is wired for 240 volt 50 amp, and we wanted to install the LuxPower XP6000 so that if he plugs into 240 volt 50 amp it will work, and if he plugs into 30 amp 120 volts it will also work. So we had to do a little bit of fine tuning to make that work correctly, and we did it. It seems to work just fine. And when you normally plug your RV, a 240 volt 50 amp RV into a 30 amp 120 volt receptacle, you have to use a little adapter. It's about a foot long. It's called, slang term is a dog bone. We'll just do a refresher on how the dog bone works in case everybody doesn't understand, so we're all on the same page here. So inside your RV you have the cord that comes out, and on the end of that cord you have 4 prongs. 3 of them are blades, and one is your ground plug. And between the blades you have L1 and L2, and above those two you have neutral, and below you have the ground. Inside the cord that feeds this plug-in, you'll have L1, L2, neutral, and ground. So you can feed into this RV L1 to neutral 120 volts, L2 to neutral 120 volts, L1 to L2 240 volts, and the ground is your safety ground. So this RV can accept 240 volts line to line, L1 to L2, or it can also accept 120 volts line 1 to neutral or line 2 to neutral. We want to plug it into a 30 amp 120 volt receptacle, which looks a little different. It's got the diagonally apart from each other the 2 slots to be plugged into, and then the ground below that. And that would be L1, neutral, and ground. So in this case, what you're plugging into is 1 hot leg to neutral, which is 120 volts, and then your safety ground. So the dog bone you use to adapt from this plug to this plug is usually about a foot or 2 feet long, and it has wires inside of it. And what they have done at factory is they've attached the L1 and the L2 from the RV to just 1 hot leg, and we're going to call that L1. The neutral is untouched and the ground is untouched. So when you plug into this, when you plug this 240 volt 50 amp cord into this 30 amp 120 volt receptacle using the dog bone adapter, your L1 ends up feeding onto the RV's L1 and the RV's L2. These are both the same 120 volts through this connection that's made in the dog bone. So the RV sees 120 to neutral, 120 to neutral, 0 between L1 and L2 because they're the same voltage as tied in the dog bone, and then your safety ground. So when we wire the XP in to the circuit, the XP, if we're using the dog bone, will only see 0 volts between L1 and L2 with this dog bone configuration. So we have to change that because the XP can't function properly seeing 0 volts between L1 and L2. Okay, we'll get into that.
So we had to come up with this transfer switch, and basically what it does is it allows us on position number 2 to run 120 30 amps, and then we've got setting 0 is just no load, just battery charge only, And setting 1 is for our 240 volt 50 amp service, straight off the post, so to speak. Yeah, that was quite the setup there. It took a lot of brain power on Wayne's behalf. It's a lot of fun.
Here's a couple of the switches, a couple options you have. One is called the Electro Switch, KW40 cam switch. It's got 12 contacts, and it also it's good for 660 volts, 63 amps continuous rating. You can see it there, and that's what you need. The other option would be this BOA main, and we use the SZW26-63. It's good for 660 volts and 63 amps as well. That's the one we used in particular. You can use, and there's many more out there, but these are two examples you can use. First of all, we'll have a look at what the switch actually looks like. Okay, so inside the switch, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of contacts. In position 1, we have contacts 1 and 2 shorted together, 5 and 6 shorted together, 9 and 10 shorted together. At the same time, we have contacts 3 and 4 disconnected, 7 and 8 disconnected, 11 and 12 disconnected. That's in position 1. In position 0, these are all disconnected and these are all disconnected. Then we have the other setting, which is position 2. So in position 2, we have 1 and 2 disconnected, 5 and 6 disconnected, 9 and 10 disconnected, 3 and 4 shorted, 7 and 8 shorted, 11 and 12 shorted. That's how the switch works internally. So we used contacts, screw contacts inside the switch, 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 10, 3, 4, 7, 8. We didn't use 11 and 12. These are kind of wiring diagrams of how we wired the switch in. And I'll just show you a simpler schematic of how this functions. Okay, so this is how it functions. If you're plugged into a 240 volt 50 amp receptacle, you should have the switch on position 1. So what we did is in position 1, we have the input to the, this is the inverter. We have the input to the inverter on L1, L2 coming in on red and black. The red wire from the shore power goes straight through into the inverter. Never gets interrupted. The black wire, which is L2, is wired to terminal 2, and then terminal 1 is wired into the inverter. So in position 1, these contacts are closed or shorted. In position 2, these contacts are opened. So you can see in position 1, the red and the black both feed straight into L1 and L2 of the inverter, uninterrupted. In position 1, when it sees 120 volts and then another 120 volts or 240 volts between these two legs, it will output 240 volts between these two load legs, 120 to neutral and split phase, the other 120 to neutral or 240. If we were to go to position 2, which is the 120 volt 30 amp position, we would open up contacts 1 and 2. In position 2, only the red L1 feeds into the inverter. The black L2 is interrupted. So now the inverter would see the red L1 coming straight in. The L2 would be at 0 volts. It would still have its ground and its neutral connected. So now the inverter would see a difference in potential between L1 and L2. This is sitting open or floating, and this is tied to L1 120 volts. Whether it's open or floating inside the inverter, I don't know, but it needs to see not the same voltage as L1 on L2, or this XP6000 will not output to the load. So we simply disconnect the L2, and now it only sees 120 volts in L1, and it will output only on the red or L1 load leg in position 2. So in order to make this work on the both 240 volt 50 amp plug-in and the 120 volt 30 amp plug-in, we have to interrupt L2 inside the switch. And we use terminals 1 and 2 to do that. And that takes care of the input to the inverter. Now the inverter is happy. Okay, so then on the output of the inverter, this is a quick complete overview. I'm not going to explain too much here. I'm going to break it down below. But you can quickly see that on the output, in position 1 is the closed switch for 9 and 10, and 9 and 10 is open in position 2. In position 1, switch contacts 5 and 6 are closed, and in position 2, switch contacts 5 and 6 are open. In position 1, 3 and 4 are open, and 3 and 4 are closed in 2. 7 and 8 are open in position 1, 7 and 8 are closed in position 2. That's what you need to see to make it work, and hopefully this is clear enough. Take your time and go through it. You can see that in position 1, L1, the red lead comes out and goes to terminal 9, where it splits off. The upper junction, you can see that we showed above, goes to these open switches. This switch is open in position 1 and this switch is open in position 1. So there's no path here. So in position 1, the other jumpered wire on terminal 9 goes through the closed switch and goes to terminal 10. So it goes straight through 9 and 10 and goes to leg 1 of the load. Now the black lead, which is L2, comes into terminal number 5, which is closed in position 1 and jumpered to, or shorted to terminal 6, which feeds straight through to leg 2. So in position 1, the 240 volt position, we saw earlier that it's got 240 volts coming into L1 and L2, and now it's outputting the same 240 volts on L1 and L2, straight through to legs 1 and leg 2 inside your RV like it should. So that works. And okay, so in position 2, at the pole, the dog bone jumpers L1 and L2. So L1 and L2 both become the same 120 volts. We can't input that to the inverter because it will not output if it sees the same 120 on both legs, or 0 volts between L1 and L2. So as we showed above, we would open up switch 1 and 2, and that would break leg 3. So then the inverter would just see the hot coming in L1. So now we need to take this hot coming in L1 and have it output on L1 out towards the load. So the L2 or black load is opened up by switch 5 and 6 because they are open in position. This 5 and 6 terminal switch is open in position 2. 9 and 10 is open in position 2, so we can't go through 9 and 10 or 5 and 6. Instead, we can jump off the terminal number 9 over to switch 3, 4, and 7 and 8. And in position 2, 3, 4 is closed and 7, 8 is closed. So basically the red leg comes out, goes through terminal 9, goes across contacts 3 and 4, output to leg 2 of your load, and then terminal 3 jumpers to terminal 7, which is shorted through contacts 7 and 8, and outputs to leg 1, L1 of your load. So all your load is fed off of one leg of the inverter, the L1. So be aware the inverter can only output 3,000 watts per leg. So in position 2, your inverter is now a 3,000 watt inverter. In position 1, since the inverter is outputting 240 volts across leg 1 and leg 2, 3,000 watts on leg 1, 3,000 watts on leg 2, your inverter is now a fully functional XP split phase 6,000. Or 3,000 watts per leg. So you have to take these into consideration when you're switching from position 1 to position 2. Be mindful of how much load you're putting on your RV, because you can, leg 1 and leg 2 and position 2 are still both hot. Just like they would be if you plugged in with it. If you didn't have an inverter and you plugged your fifth wheel into a 30 amp 120 volt outlet using the dog bone, you would be limited to on both legs, as both legs are drawing from the same 30 amp 120 volt breaker. Okay, hope that clears things up.
But also what we got is a Cerbo. So I've got a Cerbo and a 7-inch screen inside. I'll show you that in a sec. And also like what we did over here, like this whole closet here, it all closes right up nicely. That was factory. But I'll slide this over and I'll show you the other side here, what we've done. So this is the rest of the inverter right over here. And I shouldn't have packed all my stuff before I did this video, but kind of like wanted to get stuff off the lawn. But yeah, we've got a 48 to 12 volt battery converter. So I took my 12 volt system out of play, and now I'm just running strictly off the 48 volt batteries and convert them to 12 for the whole system. And yeah, as far as plumbing and wiring, I've got a shunt in there as well, so I know exactly what's happening with these batteries all the time. And basically just kind of looks almost like a panel in a house. Really simple setup, and it is really easy to install. Mostly the panels was the longest part, and figuring out that transfer switch, but it works really good. And yeah, this, as far as with this panel here, we've got the breakers for your load and your grid and your generator and your solar breaker up here as well, and your battery breakers right here. Same with on the batteries themselves, they have breakers as well. But it's a pretty good setup. I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't really seen too much out there like this, using a hybrid inverter installed into an RV. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna catch my breath here, and we'll go inside and we'll take a look at the Cerbo 7-inch screen and kind of what information we've got there. Be right back. Okay, here we are. Because we're using a LuxPower inverter and not a Victron, I'm not going to have that information here. I'm going to have to go to my LuxPower website or app and get what I'm pulling in for AC loads and grid, and also what my solar's doing. But as far as any other information, I can pull that all through your batteries. That goes through the shunt, of course. And my propane tanks, I got some propane sensors. Oh, I can't remember what, the Mopica or something like that, that just stick to the bottom of the tanks. So I've got some information there. Also with the Cerbo, you can connect your black and your gray and your freshwater tanks onto this as well. There's a setting for that. But yeah, it's I like it so far. It's just all kind of like all one touch information right here, you know, at your fingertips. But yeah, it was a pretty easy install as well. Just drop the wire down inside the closet here, and basically all of our connections were already all down there. So I just ran the wire in behind this box and to the wall and connected it down here, and then all into the basement area down there. But yeah, that's about it. So this is my my home away from home for gonna be 6 months, or actually who knows, maybe quite a few years. I sold the house, so this is my house. If there's any other projects that I'm gonna be doing on this thing, I'll be sure to share with you.